December is the final deadline for planting garlic and onions in USDA zones 7 through 10. If your ground hasn't frozen solid yet, you need to get these in the dirt today. In the southern United States and coastal regions, this late planting allows for essential root development without excessive top growth that can be damaged by a sudden hard freeze. For garlic, the choice is between hardneck and softneck varieties. Hardneck varieties like Music or German Extra Hardy are superior for flavor and produce edible scapes in the spring. Softneck varieties like California White are better for long-term storage and braiding. Select the largest, firmest bulbs you can find. Large cloves produce large bulbs. Break the heads apart only right before you plant. Do not peel the individual cloves. The papery skin is a biological shield that prevents fungal rot in damp winter soil. Preparation is simple. Use a dedicated bulb planter or a hand trowel. Space your rows 12 inches apart. Dig holes or a trench 4 inches deep. This depth is non-negotiable for December planting. It provides the thermal mass needed to protect the clove from temperature swings. Place each clove 6 inches apart. The orientation is critical. The pointed end must face the sky, and the flat root plate must face down. Planting upside down will cause the plant to waste energy, resulting in stunted, misshapen bulbs. For onions, December is the time for sets or transplants in warmer zones. Plant them 1 inch deep and 4 inches apart. If you are using sets, choose the ones smaller than a dime. Larger sets are more likely to bolt and go to seed prematurely. Immediately after planting, apply a thick layer of mulch. Use 3 to 4 inches of clean wheat straw, shredded leaves, or pine needles. This mulch layer prevents frost heaving, where the ground expands and contracts, literally pushing your bulbs out of the soil. Give the bed 1 deep watering to settle the soil around the roots. Do not water again until you see green shoots in the spring. Excessive winter moisture leads to bulb rot. December is the month for the slow starters. While most gardeners wait until March, professional growers and high-yield hobbyists start specific crops now to ensure a full harvest before the summer heat hits. Your primary focus this month is on onions, leeks, celery, and perennial herbs like rosemary, lavender, and thyme. These plants require a minimum of 10 to 12 weeks of indoor growth before they are hardy enough for the garden. Success starts with your growing medium. Never use garden soil or standard potting soil for seeds. It is too heavy, it compacts, and it often harbors damping-off fungi that will kill seedlings overnight. Use a professional-grade seed starting mix based on peat moss or coconut coir blended with perlite or vermiculite. This ensures the high porosity and drainage necessary for delicate new roots. For onions and leeks, start them in open flats or deep trays rather than individual cells. Sow seeds thickly, about 1/2 inch apart. Cover them with only 1/8 inch of mix. Onions are heavy feeders even in infancy, so use a mix with a very light organic starter charge. Once they reach 5 inches in height, use sterilized scissors to trim them back to 3 inches. This prevents them from becoming floppy and encourages the plant to direct energy into thickening the stem and developing a robust root system. Repeat this pruning every 2 weeks until transplant day. Celery and celeriac are notoriously difficult because their seeds are tiny and require light to germinate. Do not bury them. Press the seeds firmly into the surface of the moist starting mix so they have good seed-to-soil contact but remain exposed to light. Use a clear plastic humidity dome to keep the surface from drying out. Germination can take up to 21 days. Do not give up on them. Perennial herbs like rosemary and lavender have low germination rates, often only 50%. To increase your odds, sow twice as many as you need. These seeds benefit from a consistent bottom heat of 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Use a waterproof seedling heat mat. Once 50% of the seeds in a tray have sprouted, remove the humidity dome immediately to allow for airflow. Lighting is where most December starts fail. Windowsill light is insufficient in December. It is too weak and too directional, leading to leggy, weak stems. You must use dedicated LED or T5 fluorescent grow lights. Position your lights exactly 2 inches above the tops of the plants. As the plants grow, you must move the lights up to maintain this 2-inch gap. Run your lights on a timer for 14 to 16 hours every day. Watering must be done from the bottom. Place your mesh trays into a solid flat and pour 1 inch of water into the bottom tray. Let the soil wick the moisture up for 20 minutes, then pour out the excess. This keeps the foliage dry and prevents the growth of fungus gnats and mold. If you see green algae forming on the soil surface, you are overwatering. Reduce the frequency and increase the airflow using a small oscillating fan. Growing food in December is about protection and selection. Your strategy depends entirely on your zone. In zones 8, 9, and 10, you can direct sow the hardiest greens right now without cover. Your best performers will be spinach, winter density kale, mâche, corn salad, and claytonia, miner's lettuce. These crops laugh at light frosts. Prepare a clean, weed-free bed. Rake it smooth. For mâche and claytonia, broadcast the seed on the surface and simply press it in with the back of a rake. They need light to germinate. For spinach, plant in rows spaced 12 inches apart, half an inch deep. For gardeners in zones 3 through 7, the game changes. You must provide a microclimate. You have 2 practical options: a low tunnel or a cold frame. A low tunnel is the quickest solution. Bend 10-foot lengths of half-inch EMT conduit or PVC over a 4-foot wide bed. Cover it with greenhouse-grade 6mm plastic sheeting. Do not use construction plastic. It degrades quickly in UV light and will fall apart over your food. Secure the edges with heavy sandbags or soil to keep the winter wind from tearing it away. A cold frame offers better insulation and is easier to manage daily. It's essentially a bottomless box sunk slightly into the ground, topped with a clear lid like an old window sash or a twin-wall polycarbonate sheet. Orientation is critical. The sloped lid must face due south to capture maximum solar gain during the short winter days. Sink the walls 2 inches into the soil to seal out drafts and pests. The number one mistake with winter growing is not cold, it is heat. On a sunny 35-degree day, the interior of a closed cold frame or low tunnel can easily exceed 85 degrees. This radical temperature swing shocks plants, makes them tender, and then they die when temperatures plunge at night. Management is a daily commitment. You must vent your structure. If the outside temperature is forecast to rise above 45 degrees Fahrenheit, you must open the lid or lift the plastic side. Prop the cold frame lid open 3 to 4 inches with a block of wood. This allows excess heat and moisture to escape. You must close it back up in the mid-afternoon, as soon as the sun drops low, to trap the remaining heat for the long night ahead. If you work all day, install an automatic wax cylinder opener that opens the vent when it gets warm and closes it when it cools. Watering is the second most common point of failure. Winter plants transpire very little. Overwatering creates cold, soggy soil that rots roots and breeds gray mold. Only water when the soil is dry an inch below the surface. Check it with your finger. Crucial rule: only water in the morning on a sunny day. This gives the foliage time to completely dry off before nightfall. Wet leaves entering a freezing night will turn to mush. When harvesting, use the cut and come again method. Take only the outer 30% of the leaves from any single plant. Leave the central growing point intact so the plant can continue to produce. If a deep freeze below 20 degrees is expected, stop harvesting for a few days beforehand to allow the plants to build up their natural sugar antifreeze. December is the peak of the dormant season, making it the absolute best time to plant bare root fruit trees and berries. Buying bare root instead of potted plants is a strategic move. You save roughly 40 to 60% on the cost per plant, and because they are dormant, they experience zero transplant shock. They will establish a much stronger root system by spring than any container-grown plant ever could. The moment your bare root shipment arrives, the clock is ticking. The roots must remain moist. If you cannot plant them the same day, you must heel them in. Dig a shallow trench in a shaded spot. Lay the trees at a 45-degree angle and cover the roots with moist soil or mulch. If you are planting immediately, soak the roots in a bucket of lukewarm water for at least 2 hours, but never more than 6. Over-soaking will drown the roots by depriving them of oxygen. Site selection is your next priority. Fruit trees require a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight. Do not plant them in low-lying areas of your property. These frost pockets trap cold air and will kill your blossoms in late spring. Ensure the soil drains well. Fruit trees hate wet feet. If your soil is heavy clay, plant on a slight mound to improve drainage. When digging the hole, think wide, not deep. Dig a hole twice as wide as the current root spread, but only as deep as the root system itself. The most common mistake is digging a narrow, deep hole that causes roots to circle and eventually choke the tree. Use a garden fork to scarify the sides of the hole. If the sides are smooth and glazed from the shovel, the new roots will struggle to penetrate the surrounding soil. For trees, locate the graft union, the noticeable bump where the fruit variety was joined to the rootstock. This union must remain 2 to 3 inches above the final soil line. If you bury the graft, the top variety will grow its own roots, and you will lose the dwarfing or disease-resistant characteristics of your rootstock. Spread the roots out radially over a small mound of soil at the bottom of the hole. Do not add fertilizer, compost, or peat moss to the hole. You want the roots to move out into the native soil immediately. Adding amendments creates a pot effect where the roots refuse to leave the nutrient-rich hole. For berries, like raspberries and blackberries, the process is similar. Plant them in a trench rather than individual holes. Space red raspberries 24 inches apart. Space blackberries 3 to 4 feet apart. Ensure the crown, the point where the roots meet the stems, is exactly at the soil surface. Planting berries too deep leads to crown rot. Once the hole is filled with native soil, tamp it down firmly with your hands or light foot pressure to eliminate air pockets. Air pockets are death zones where roots will dry out and die. After tamping, water the plant with 5 gallons of water to further settle the soil. Finally, perform the initial pruning. For most bare root trees, you should head them back to about 30 inches above the ground. This seems drastic, but it balances the top of the tree with the reduced root system. For berries, prune the canes back to 6 inches. This forces the plant to focus all its energy on root establishment during the winter. Finish with a 2-inch layer of wood chip mulch, but keep the mulch 3 inches away from the trunk to prevent bark rot and rodent damage. In most of the United States, December is actually the ideal time to plant spring flowering bulbs, particularly in the South and the Mid-Atlantic. Many gardeners make the mistake of planting too early when the soil is still warm, which can cause bulbs to rot or sprout prematurely. As long as you can physically push a shovel into the ground, you can plant tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, and alliums. If you live in USDA zones 8 through 10, you have a specific requirement: pre-chilling. In these warmer climates, the soil never gets cold enough for long enough to trigger the chemical change inside the bulb that leads to a flower. You must store your tulip and hyacinth bulbs in a refrigerator for at least 8 to 10 weeks before planting. Critical warning: do not store bulbs in the same drawer as apples or pears. These fruits release ethylene gas, which will destroy the flower bud inside the bulb, leaving you with nothing but green leaves in the spring. When it comes to the actual planting, follow the rule of 3. Dig your hole 3 times as deep as the height of the bulb. For a 2-inch tall tulip, that means a 6-inch deep hole. For smaller bulbs like crocus, 3 inches is sufficient. Planting at the correct depth is your best defense against temperature fluctuations and hungry squirrels. Orientation matters. Always place the bulb with the pointed end facing up. If you cannot tell which end is the top, which is common with anemones or ranunculus, plant the bulb on its side. The plant will naturally find its way to the surface. For maximum visual impact, do not plant in single rows. Dig a wide trench or a circular clump and place 10 to 15 bulbs together, spaced about 3 inches apart. This creates a professional, high-density floral display rather than a sparse line of flowers. To protect your investment from pests, add 1 tablespoon of bone meal or a dedicated bulb fertilizer to the bottom of each hole. This provides the phosphorus needed for strong root establishment during the winter. If squirrels or voles are a problem in your area, sprinkle a teaspoon of dried red pepper flakes into the hole, or lay a piece of 1/2-inch hardware cloth, wire mesh, over the top of the planting area before covering it with soil. This prevents them from digging up the bulbs. December is also a secret window for planting dormant perennials like peonies and daylilies. For peonies, the eyes, the small pinkish growth buds, are the most important factor. You must plant them no deeper than 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface. If you bury a peony too deep, it will grow healthy green foliage every year, but will never produce a single bloom. For daylilies and irises, ensure the crown of the plant is at or just slightly below the soil line. Spread the roots out in a fan shape. Once the perennials and bulbs are in the ground, water the area thoroughly. This single watering is not for hydration. It is to settle the soil and eliminate air pockets that can cause winter desiccation. Finally, apply a 3-inch layer of organic mulch. In colder zones, wait until the first hard frost to apply this mulch. The goal is not to keep the ground warm. The goal is to keep it frozen. This prevents the freeze-thaw cycle that can push bulbs out of the ground and damage the root systems of your new perennials. Your final task in December is the most important for next year's yield: protecting your soil. Never leave a garden bed bare over winter. Bare soil is a dead zone. It loses its microbial life, leaches nitrogen into the groundwater, and becomes compacted by heavy winter rains. If you aren't planting a crop, you must cover the earth. The most effective method for home gardeners is sheet composting. Apply a 4-inch layer of well-rotted organic compost directly on top of your beds. Do not till it in. Tilling destroys the fungal networks that your plants will need in March. By laying it on top, you allow snow and rain to slowly filter the nutrients into the root zone. By spring, the worms will have done the tilling for you. If you are in Zone 7 or warmer, use green manure or cover crops. Your best options for December are crimson clover and winter rye. These plants are cold hardy and will grow slowly throughout the winter. They serve 2 purposes. The roots hold the soil in place to prevent erosion, and the clover actually fixes nitrogen from the air into the soil. Broadcast the seeds at a rate of 2 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Rake them in lightly and walk over the area to ensure good seed-to-soil contact. In colder zones, or if you struggle with heavy weed pressure, use the occultation method. Cover your beds with a heavy-duty 6 mil black silage tarp. Weigh the edges down with sandbags or cinder blocks. This tarp does 3 things. It prevents winter weeds from germinating, it keeps the soil from becoming waterlogged, and the black color absorbs sunlight, warming the soil up to 10 degrees faster in early spring. Finally, perform a tool audit. Rust is the enemy of efficiency. Use a wire brush or steel wool to remove every trace of dirt and rust from your shovels, hoes, and pruners. For wooden handles, sand them down with 80 grit sandpaper and apply a coat of linseed oil to prevent cracking. For metal blades, wipe them down with a rag soaked in mineral oil or a biodegradable tool lubricant. Store them in a dry shed, hanging up, not touching the floor. December preparation is the difference between a struggling garden and a high-yielding farm.